Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Teresa Castro. I'm a proud alumna and staff member in UNC's Office of Alumni Relations. Thank you all for joining us today for the Alumni Career Panel, Alumni Working in Mental Health Professions. Today, we will learn from and connect with fellow UNC Bears working in this industry. Before I introduce you to our panelists, I would like to share a few housekeeping items. First, this event will be recorded and will be available on demand a week from today on the alumni website. I will post the link in the chat. I invite you all to start building your network and reach out to the panelists after this event. I will also post our contact information in the chat towards the end of this virtual event. Lastly, I will go off screen after introductions and will return toward the end of the event to provide a closing statement. As we highlight the careers of these alumni, I invite students, fellow staff, and faculty to ask questions through the Q&A feature. Now, please help me in welcoming our panelists. Panelists, please introduce yourself by stating your name, pronouns, title, the organization you work for, your UNC degree, and a little bit about yourself. Maria, we'll start with you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maria Davis, she, her pronouns. I graduated from UNC in 2021 with my master's in couples and family counseling therapy. I currently work as a behavioral therapist at Summit Stone Health Partners in Fort Collins. It's a community mental health facility. And something about me is I'm a major foodie. So if y'all got recommendations, feel free to email me, send me a message on LinkedIn, let me know.
Thank you, Maria. Anaisa, how about we go with you next?
Hey everyone, my name is Anaisa Lua. I go by Lua. My pronouns are she, her, hers, ella. And I graduated from UNC back in 2017 with my undergraduate in Spanish education, K through 12, and then a minor in Mexican American Studies. I currently work as a clinical services manager in bilingual behavioral health therapist in a clinic here in Denver titled Servicios de la Raza. Something about me is I enjoy painting and poetry and all kinds of fun artistic activities.
Thank you, Lua. And John, why don't you close us out?
John Richardson. I finished up last year my PhD in school psychology. I work as a school psychologist at Denver Public Schools in the far northeast of Denver, and also as a clinical mental health therapist in a group practice in Longmont, Krupnick Counseling Associates. Something about me, I love road trips, I hike every chance I get, and I play guitar.
Thank you, John. Now I will hand it over to Rachel, who will be our facilitator this afternoon. Rachel.
Hi, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rachel Perez, she, her pronouns. I'm currently serving in the role as the executive director connected to UNC's Counseling Center and the Assault Survivors Advocacy Program. So happy to be here and honored to spend some time with the panelists and hear from them. To start, we'll start with you, Maria. How did your UNC experience help you launch into a career and arrive at your current role?
I think in the ways that it helped me was to kind of open my eyes as to how vast the counseling world is, in a way to where I could explore, kind of figure out what's my jam and what's not, figure out my lane in this big field. And then something that I really appreciated towards the end of my program when I was embarking on my internship was that I was able to connect with previous alumni from the program, kind of hear how it is they took their next steps after graduation, if they're currently working in the mental health field. Where are you working? Do you like it? What are some things that you find yourself really doing in those spaces, just so I could kind of have some sort of blueprint or roadmap to work off of. And then thankfully, my internship had a previous alumni there, and we were able to establish connections. I was able to tour the place a little bit. And so when I began my internship with that location, things just worked out so perfectly to where they hired me. And so I've been hired for the past 2 years there, and I am happy.
Awesome. Thank you. I hear a lot of networking in there. Lua, same question for you. How did your UNC experience help you launch into your career and arrive at your current role?
Yeah, well, for a really long time, I thought I was going to be a teacher. And then after kind of doing my semester teaching at one of the schools in the nearby areas, I realized that there was part of me that really enjoyed doing that work, and there was a part of me that kind of felt like my passions lied elsewhere. And so I actually visited somebody at the Marcus Garvey Center who worked with individuals potentially pursuing a graduate degree, or maybe were interested in pursuing a master's degree. Kind of talked to him a little bit about what I was going through, told him the things that I was passionate about, and he kind of guided me through different career options. And yeah, he helped me apply for grad school at DU and kind of showed me the ropes, since he was also in the field. And yeah, thanks to him, that's where I'm at.
That's wonderful. Sounds like a lot of meaningful exploration.
Definitely.
And John, we'd love to hear from you. How did your UNC experience help you launch into your career and arrive at your current role?
Well, I wouldn't have my career without that degree. It's kind of just as simple as that. You can't be a school psych unless you have like a minimal of an educational specialist degree in school psychology. And so I did the PhD, so that was EDS and then some. But the professors had wonderful experience to share and wisdom to impart. I just had just the gamut of stuff from research experiences, clinical experiences. And in schools, in the PhD program, as I did it, it prepares you for a little more for school psych, and it prepares you for just general health service psychology. If you want to pursue a degree in Colorado, it's a DORA license as a psychologist. So in that program, you're encouraged to seek out other experiences, not just in school. And I did a clinical externship, one at Alternative Homes for Youth, which is there in Greeley, and advanced practicum in evaluation and testing and all that sort of stuff right there in the educational building with the psych services clinic. So it was just the volume of experience, which is what helped me and prepared me. And it being coming from a school with such a history of excellence in the field of education was, I think, a real boon to it as well.
Thank you very much. The next thing we're wondering, the stigma around mental health, and this is a question back to everybody in the group, is still a significant issue. How have you seen attitudes towards mental health evolve during your career, and what role do mental health professionals play in reducing stigma? Lou, I'd love to start with you.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a hot take, but I think what I realized is that I work a lot with the Latino, Chicano, Hispanic community. And so I realized that there's a lot of ways that our peoples have welcomed conversations of healing as it relates to mental health. And it's more about destigmatizing the practice and the institutions that have been harmful to our people, so that our people can trust the practice. And so what I've realized is that when we create a space that's safe and welcoming and honors people's cultures and traditions and integrates them into our practice, I think that naturally destigmatizes the ways in which people think they're going to be hospitalized or be treated because of ways that they have been treated in the past. And so, yeah, I think I just put the onus back on the institutions and the ways that we're taught to practice. And I think that those need to be destigmatized and changed and deinstitutionalized, so that then our community can feel welcomed and feel like there's a place for them in this, in this form of healing.
Thank you. Really appreciate that perspective. John, how have you seen attitudes towards mental health evolving during your career, and what role do mental health professionals play in reducing stigma, in your opinion?
Although I only finished my doctorate last year, I got my master's in 2004. So I have seen maybe too much, but it has been I'm not going to say night and day, but there's been a lot of change. There's been just so much more awareness and so much more effort toward destigmatization, and it's just been such a good thing to see. I couldn't even tell you really what I could identify as a turning point or what really brought that about. I'm not even really sure, but all I can tell you is I'm glad for it, and I'm glad for these other perspectives that are here today. And yeah, I'm not sure what else there's to say. Mental health, our role is very simply just to be, just to have all those cultural awarenesses, as much as possible, so that it does become a safe space, so that you're able to facilitate that safe space for everyone. Yeah, I think that's all I can say about that.
I appreciate that perspective around incremental progress and change. Yeah. And then Maria, love to hear from you. How have you seen attitudes towards mental health evolve during your career, and what role do mental health professionals play in reducing the stigma?
So my particular location within my agency works with substance use population. And something that I didn't know before I joined the team was we have particular liaisons from our mental health team that works with substance use folks who are mandated. So they have like a third legal party obligation, parole, probation, drug court, anything like that. But those liaisons go to court with those clients and helps to advocate for their needs when it comes to their treatment progress. Because when you're in a setting like a court, mental health has been stigmatized as a way to criminalize people. But because of those liaisons, we're starting to change that perspective to where, yes, this person experiences particular difficulties, and at the same time, that can be used as a pathway for us to really understand the ways in which we can better support this person so that they can, complete whatever legal obligations they might have, but then also set them up for success when this is a closed chapter for them. So that's been something that's been really heartwarming for me to hear from my coworkers, and especially my clients who are a part of that particular niche. That's been a really beneficial way that I think that this conversation is starting to change.
Yeah, I really hear in that the power of systemic work. The next thing I'm wondering about, telehealth and online therapy. As we all know, it's become increasingly prevalent, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. How has the delivery of mental health services changed during your career, and what do you see as the future of mental health? John.
When I first started, it would have been unthinkable to do it this way. Absolutely not. And I didn't do it until COVID hit, but it has been, I think it's a game changer, and I think it's here to stay. I don't think I've done the research enough to say if that's totally a good thing. Things may change, who knows? But for now, I'm going to say it's a really good thing, because it has increased so much access to people who would not normally have it. And it doesn't work for everyone, but then therapy doesn't work for everybody. For people who have more internalizing problems, who are more verbal, and have those capacities, it's great. It's great. And it just, for them to get on and do this with someone, you would think, and I would understand if you would think that, how do you do that? How do you build a relationship over it? I don't know, but you do. It happens. I can tell you, don't worry. It can happen. Now, for the younger kids who have hyperactivity and attention issues, it's not the best. And other things, family therapy, maybe not. Couples therapy, and I've dabbled in couples therapy. I've not done it online, but I've heard other feedback that makes me think that's probably not the best for it. But for those it works well for, it works really well for. And so it's a game changer, and I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that perspective. I'm hearing still use your clinical discretion in deciding the fit for people. Maria, same question for you. Telehealth and online therapy has been more prevalent. How has the delivery of mental health services changed during your career, and what do you see as the future of mental health?
I got introduced to telehealth before I jumped into my professional shoes, if you will. at the beginning of my practicum. It was like towards the end of my program at UNC. It was at the start of COVID. And so those clients that I was seeing in my practicum all of a sudden got switched to this mix between Zooms and Teams and all the online methods. And so it was very much so a learning curve, and kind of like what John was saying, trying to practice those clinical skills that I was doing so in person and translating them into an online world, especially when I can only see like the chest up. There's so much that is happening in that client's room that I'm not able to pick up on. So it was frustrating at first. But now that I'm in my professional career, I can see that it is more of an accessibility option. And especially when it minimizes those geographical barriers, because I have clients who I'm seeing in Castle Rock who live in Denver, and they're seeing me, a clinician in Fort Collins. Like, that is eliminating miles of gas, of financial stress for them to get the support that they need. And it also meets clients where they're at in terms of comfortability. If you don't want to meet me on site because you're still respecting COVID rules, or you just don't want to see me in person, that's fine. Let's meet on Zoom. Or if you just want to talk on phone, there are some sessions that I just have strictly on phone, and those are still powerful and impactful. So it's a hard thing, and it's also a good thing that I'm seeing in terms of being able to cast that net just a little bit wider, so that we can catch those folks who might be slipping through the cracks, or just don't even know that they can do Zoom telehealth sessions and whatnot. It helps increase the exposure.
Thank you very much. And then Lua, for you, how has the delivery of mental health services changed during your career, and what do you see as the future of mental health care?
I think I'll echo what everybody said, and then I'll kind of talk a little bit about some of the barriers that maybe people did experience, not having access to internet or like a computer service or things to be able to engage in therapeutic services while we weren't able to be in person. So I think it created opportunities for some, and then it created disadvantages for others. I think for me and my style, it really depends on the client and what they're able to do in the spaces that they have. I think sometimes telehealth is not the right fit for people who do not feel safe in their home, who do not feel like they can be fully honest and open because somebody may be hearing or listening in on the things that they may be saying. And I think for others, it does create this space of like, I can go home, I can go to my therapy session, and then I can start cooking right after. And that almost feels like a really great incentive to continue to engage in ways that you might have not been able to because your day was full or you had to work or things like that. But I think, yeah, almost like John said, it really depends on the client's preference, your clinical preference, the presenting concern, what's actually happening with the client. But I work a little bit with teens, and I would say it was kind of fun to get to see their room if they did have a room, or maybe there was objects that they wanted to show me in their homes that might have been special. So it introduced a new element of ways to connect with the client and build rapport based on the things that were in their home and how they could use those in therapy. And so that was a kind of neat intervention that was, and that is not possible in your own therapy space because you're meeting them where they're at with their items, their possessions, their things, their comfort.
Thank you so much. A lot of layers. Yeah. Back to the group. How do you build or strengthen your networks? And why is networking or relationship building important in your work in the mental health field? Maria.
So working in community mental health, with my agency, we have many different locations across Northern Colorado. And so what that means is that I have so many different people who are well-versed in particular modalities, techniques, experiences with populations that I can go to if I have a particular like conceptualization question, like, hey, I have this client with this and this and this. I'm not too well versed. What can you share with me? What literature research can you point me in the direction to? We also have this concept of coordination of care. Ethically, if I feel like I'm not meeting this client's needs, I am able to give them a name or connect them to someone else, as opposed to putting them on the wait list for however many months long and hoping that they get a better fit as to what it is that they need. But because I have this personal connection with my coworkers across the agency, we're able to make that a little bit more seamless. And networking is very helpful because mental health changes as we humans change. And so it's forever constantly changing, right? And so being able to stay up to date with the things that are now proving to be more beneficial than how they were 5-10 years ago. The new modalities, the new holistic type stuff that are coming up now, and how that can be integrated into mental health care, that helps us to better succinctly, and I would say more accurately, meet the needs of our populations, because we're rolling with the times essentially.
Thank you so much. Lua, your thoughts on why is networking or relationship building important in your work in the mental health field?
Yeah, I think in addition to the benefits that it provides our clients, I think it also provides the opportunities for you to understand different ways to engage in therapy. If you talk to someone who works in an inpatient facility versus extensive outpatient versus private practice versus a community mental health clinic, we all have a lot of different experiences. And so if you're not really sure about maybe where you're at or the type of way that you're practicing, it could be helpful to connect with other professionals to see how you can translate your skills and maybe provide therapy in a different way, in a different modality, in a different setting. And so having those connections really helps us branch out and see what you can really do as a clinician. And then it's not just therapy. You can provide clinical supervision to unlicensed clinicians, and it kind of opens the doors to all of these other things outside of just being in the room with the client, if we're able to build those connections and see other ways that we can utilize our skills and our knowledge to help our communities.
Thank you. John, what do you have to add in terms of why is networking or relationship building important in your work in the mental health field?
I don't have too much to add, except that while while it may seem that this is very much a solo type adventure, you going in with a client of doing stuff, but you do need a team. It's so important, I think, depending on the type of setting that you're working in. Certainly in public schools, right now I'm doing these things that school psychologists call a functional behavioral assessment, and I won't lie to y'all, I don't like doing those things. Don't let my professors know about that, but I don't like doing those things. But they are required at the district level, and people do kind of look to the school psych like that's your responsibility to be on top of, and that's not my favorite part of the job. But the good news is I have a team. I have an interdisciplinary team that I get to bring to the table and have all these things. I'm not ultimately responsible for all of it. There are pieces of it that I'm ultimately responsible for. But sorry, I don't know if I went a little far afield there, but what the question actually was. But the teamwork is essential, and therefore networking is, obviously, right. And I would say hang on to the people that you're going to grad school with. Make sure you follow them. Make sure you find out what they're doing and how they're liking their job. I think that was already said, whether it's community mental health or inpatient.
Thank you so much. It feels like a really real answer. There will be things we don't like. Share it. Get through it.
Share the load.
Yeah, absolutely. Next thing I'm wondering about, as a mental health professional, can you share the continuing education or professional development opportunities you've pursued to stay current in the field? And how have these experiences informed your advocacy efforts in promoting mental health initiatives or causes you are passionate about? Lua.
I feel like I graduated a little bit ago, so there's multiple trainings that I've engaged in and workshops and things like that. As part of our job, we actually have to keep going to school or engaging in workshops and building kind of that educational piece so that we can continue to be current and provide great care to our clients. But most recently, what I've been really passionate about is seeing the ways in which people have been integrating holistic practices into the Western practice of therapy. And so something that Servicios de la Raza has done, at least here in our behavioral health clinic, is began to provide holistic health a holistic health approach to therapy. And we host holistic health nights where we bring Acu Detox, sound bowls, yoga, Arte Cura, which is a community art studio that I help run. And then we have curanderas come in and bring limpias and do different things that culturally align with the clients that we work with. And so it's a beautiful space to be able to do therapy as a therapist and then provide these extra resources that align with our clients' cultures. And so I attended a 2-week course at the University of Mexico that talked about curanderismo and what that is and how they've actually been healing individuals who've reported symptomology of depression and anxiety in ways in which we have been healing as peoples in the past. And so it's really cool to have learned about susto, which is in some ways there's connections to PTSD there and how they've understood what susto meant to our community and the ways that they've approached healing in those terms. And so something I'm really passionate about learning is ways in which we have been healing indigenously and ancestrally, and how we can combine the Western practice with our indigenous practices.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Certainly something to be passionate about. John, as a mental health professional, can you share your continuing education or professional development opportunities that you've preferred or you've pursued to stay current in the field, and how have these informed your advocacy efforts in promoting mental health initiatives or causes that you're particularly passionate about?
When you work in schools, I believe with Dora, you get this thing known as a dean status, meaning that they understand that by the nature of being in the schools, you're getting enough professional development along the way that they're never going to call you to task on these every other year and audits that they do for to make sure that you're staying up to date. That said, I still seek out other things. Like last year, I got trained in EMDR. I can't call myself certified. This year, I'm taking a graduate level course in collective narrative practices. And I love that part about this field, is just staying current with stuff, because I have this horrible condition where I just like learning, and that's why I did the doctorate and everything. So yeah, I love that. I love staying current on science and all the new practices and different ways of healing. And you do need that, and I am grateful for that. When I first started in Colorado, that was not actually required. That was that's been a not super recent, but in the last 15 years or so, did they actually start making LPCs and licensed psychologists seek out continuing ed. It did not used to be a thing. I don't know how they got by with that. But that's not, thankfully, it is required now. But you just have to have that, because science is, by its nature, it's always changing. It's always correcting itself. That's what good science is. Yeah, and we can't be good advocates without staying current on that stuff.
Thank you so much for that perspective. That was a lot of information you shared, a lot of value in that. And Maria, as a mental health professional, can you share the continuing education or professional development opportunities that you've pursued to stay current in the field, and how these experiences have informed your advocacy efforts as well?
I think I have the same strength as John does. I'll reframe it that way, and that I just want to learn all the things. I don't know if I want to do that in a classroom, but I want to learn all the things, right? And so my agency, they offer a lot of internal and then connection to external trainings as well. And so I've just been doing all of the trainings as much as my caseload and my schedule will allow me to. But one of the amazing things about that is I'm now able to submit my licensure for licensed addictions counseling, which I never thought that I would ever get, but my agency created a pathway for me to be able to do that, and they're paying for it. So heck yeah. I'm also furthering my knowledge in particular modalities. So like dialectic behavioral therapy, DBT, trauma focused cognitive behavioral therapy, TFCBT, and really using that with my experience with kiddos, teenagers, and young adults. And these are things that I honestly never heard of within my program. And that's not a diss to the program, but that's just a testament to how vast, again, that this field is, and that there are so many unique things that you can learn about that you can bring into your practice in a way that's congruent to, of course, the counselor, of course, to that client's needs. But there's never an end to this, if you will. Like, there's always going to be something that you can learn to better yourself.
Thank you so much. Lifelong learners, I'm hearing all around. Yeah. Can you share your unique cultural perspectives and how those have influenced your approaches to mental health care? And can you provide examples of how cultural competencies has played a role in your work, particularly in addressing the mental health needs of culturally diverse clients? Maria, I'll stay with you in this.
Yeah. So for me, I identify as Black and Asian. And within those two communities alone, as well amongst most marginalized groups, mental health is not talked about. And of course, stemming from my own personal experience, that was a particular narrative that I wanted to help change. And so as soon as I got hired on, I was like, do we have any diversity, equity, inclusion, justice committees? I want to be a part of that. Do we have any initiatives for gender affirming care? I want to be a part of that, because those things are intersecting factors of a person's life that should not be left out of the conversation. And I want our field to get to a point to where those things are standardized to where they're the baseline, as opposed to being considered as additional boxes for us to check when it comes to providing care for a client. And so those things really direct my practice. When I'm meeting with clients who, more often than not, I differ from them in some shape, form, or fashion, practicing to broach that conversation of like, hey, there are some visible and non-visible differences between us. This is who I am. This is what I feel comfortable sharing. And I want to learn those uniquities, I don't know if that's a word, but I'm gonna go with it, about you that make you you. And how can we bring those things into the room to really tailor this experience in a way that's going to fit for them, so that it doesn't feel like a cookie cutter approach, which is something I've consistently heard about the mental health field. And that's just not going to get anybody anywhere.
Thank you so much. Lua, for you, can you share your unique cultural perspective, how your unique cultural perspectives have influenced your approach to mental health care? And can you provide examples of how cultural competency has played a role in your work, particularly in addressing mental health needs of culturally diverse clients?
I think the first thing I want to talk about is access. Mental health care can be really expensive for anybody that's tried to find a therapist. It can be in the hundreds of dollars sometimes, depending on where you live and what type of therapy that you're looking for. And so for me, it was really important to be able to work for an agency that provided care at no cost to the client, or was had an option for sliding scale fee. And so most of my clients are either Medicaid clients or have a grant that covers the cost of their care. And so they pay no cost for their therapy services. And so that just aligns a lot with the work that I want to do. And it lets me be a therapist in a different way, because I don't have to exchange goods in a way. I don't know. It lets me practice in a different way. And maybe that'll change in the future, but at least for now, that was a big piece. And I think the other piece is just questioning the ways and the things that I was taught, and why things work the ways that they work, and why I need to practice the ways that it says in that book, and why does it work? And does it just work for those, like a particular type of group, or does it work for everybody? And if so, how do we know that? And so for me, I think my cultural lens applies itself in kind of questioning and non-conforming to the ways that things have been done, because they have worked, but they've worked for a particular time, a particular generation, a particular group of people, and that may no longer be true. And so advocating for the ways in which we can do research for different modalities, and advocating for the ways in which we can integrate changes to the practice that could potentially be beneficial to more people. Because there's certain modalities that have a lot of credibility, but when we look at them, it's because they were researched more. And so of course they have more credibility. There's more time spent looking at these particular ways of practice. And so That's a big piece. And then I think another one is really just understanding my client's culture and what therapy really means to them, and not necessarily pathologizing behavior that sometimes does not need to be pathologized. Like, you want to say thank you every session. That makes sense. You grew up with a family that expressed a lot of gratitude, and there's no need for me to pathologize this particular behavior because it comes from this cultural experience in your own family. And so I think really trying to understand behavior outside pathology and see if there's things that people are engaging in, because that's the ways that things have been done for quite some time.
Thank you so much. I heard a lot of great insights there, and specifically ones that reinforced what you all said about the previous question and that ongoing learning to match well with clients. John, to you, can you share how your unique cultural perspectives has influenced your approaches to mental health care? And can you provide examples of how cultural competence has played a role in your work, particularly in addressing mental health needs of culturally diverse clients?
Not sure how unique mine is, but yes, and I would just say to other prospective providers who find themselves in my social location, this is where the continuing ed does come in and is so important, because it is always very important just to continually examine all presumptions about any client that walks through the door. And not long ago, I was working with an African-American family, and there came a point where, when the mom, who I loved working with, she was so enjoyable to work with, speaking about how she is a single mom, raising two Black sons, was getting a lot of advice from the other women in her family, and I felt something kind of pull within me, thinking like, well, why are you letting them do that? Because in my family, that would be not okay. That would be, someone else would get on them so quickly, like, you stay out of my parental, my business is raising kids. And I realized I was able to pull back from that immediately, recognizing that was my part of the world that I was coming from. And I just named that. I named that to her. I said, if you were of my ethnicity, this is what that makes me think of, and that's what I would do, recognizing that might not be okay for you. I don't know for sure. I don't know. I'm not part of her family, so I don't know exactly what the right way to go about it would be. But I also recognize, just from my, continuing education, that there is a lot of role flexibility in African-American families, and that may be entirely appropriate. So that was just a good reminder that I need to be constantly reassessing all my presumptions about anyone who I'm on the opposite end of the screen. In that case, it was. So yeah, I don't know that other cishet white males any more than anybody else really need to constantly reevaluate these things, but I definitely know you do.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, John. I appreciate that, and such a concrete example. The last question to the panelists: can you provide a final word of advice for UNC Bears currently seeking a job in the mental health field? John, your thoughts?
Do your own therapy, please. Mm-hmm. You're going to be encountering a lot of people who are not like you. And if you've not been doing your own work, there is a good chance you will be bringing a lot of what we call projections into things, and unfinished business, your own past traumas. We've all got them in some sense. Maybe your life hasn't been, awful or perfect, but you've had some injuries along the way, and they've left an impact, no doubt. And whether you're going to be in a clinic, whether you're going to be inpatient in schools, you're going to bring those themes along with you. You're going to bring those stories. And so it was not stressed in either my master's or my doc program that it wasn't even really mentioned or encouraged to be doing your own counseling, your own therapy. But I know that is a thing in some programs, and I think it should be encouraged. I do think a lot of new professionals come in never having been to therapy, and I would just really push and encourage y'all to explore that.
Thank you so much, John. I appreciate that. And I think it connects to what the panel was talking about earlier about ways to destigmatize mental health. This might be another way to do that.
And it adds to your education too. Yeah, you get to see how else it's done. So that's
lots of benefits. Yeah. Lua, your thoughts, a final word of advice for UNC Bears currently seeking a job in the mental health field.
Yeah, I actually also encourage people to go to their own therapy, and not just for a few sessions, like really commit to a clinician for however long it takes, so that it feels that you're able to be a part of someone's story in a way that you are not trying to take over the wheel and advise them to do things, but really be able to hold the uncomfort in this and the space to be able to allow somebody to really get to those places on their own. And I see that sometimes clinicians may not intentionally may rob somebody of that experience of getting to the hill by themselves, because they really just want that feeling of potential validation or whatever it is. I don't really know, right? But I think going to our own therapy can be helpful in really understanding our own stories and getting there on for ourselves, and then wanting to recreate similar experiences for others. Yeah, so I second that big time. Oh, and that, oh, sorry, this one's a big one. That I know that we get in this field because we want to help people. And I think that is very important. And there's also other things to our jobs that sometimes we don't think about that we'll have to do, almost like John said. So do your research. You'll have to do notes and assessments and a lot of paperwork that sometimes you don't think that it comes with the job. I just thought like, woo, I get to sit next to people and hear their stories and kind of help them out. And then there's a whole other side to the things that are going on. So really do your research about what it really means or what a day in a therapist's life looks like, because it's different depending on where you work.
Thank you so much. And then Maria, can you provide a final word of advice for UNC Bears currently seeking a job in the mental health field?
For me, it would be to trust yourself, your training, and the time that you're putting into this experience. You're not doing this for nothing. And just as much as our clients are growing, we are growing as well as therapists, clinicians, counselors, whichever label you want to use. And so with that, practicing grace, compassion, and forgiveness towards yourself, because you're not going to have all the answers right away. And that goes back to what John and Lua and I were talking about in terms of community, in terms of supervision and networking. You have these resources here, and just as much as we want to encourage our clients to use them, we should also use them as well, kind of practicing what we're preaching. But that you got this, you're not doing this for no reason, and to trust yourself.
Wow. Thank you so much, all of you, for all your valuable insights. And I'm going to pass it back to Teresa.
Thank you. Thank you to all of our panelists, our moderator, Rachel, and to all of you for joining us today. It is always an honor and a pleasure to host fellow Bears and hear about their UNC experience, unique identities, career paths, and industry insights. Throughout the semester, we will be hosting virtual alumni career panels. To learn more, you can visit www.unco.edu/alumni/careers. And before we end, we have our colleagues over at the UNC Center for Career Readiness who will be sharing some insight into their resources.
Hi, everyone. My name is Danielle DeSalvo, she, her, hers pronouns. I'm a career counseling graduate assistant here at UNC Center for Career Readiness. A little bit about our center. We are here to support you with all things career while you're a current student, as well as up to 3 years after you graduate. So our office connects UNC Bears to quality on-campus, community, and national employers through the Career Tool Handshake and hosting on-campus career fairs each semester as well. Students are encouraged to schedule an appointment with our career counseling team for resume and cover letter reviews, job, internship, and grad school search support, mock interviews, networking tips, and a whole lot more you can find on our website. We also offer drop-in hours, both in person and virtually for access, as well as workshops throughout each semester. For any more information on all this, you can visit our website, which is unco.edu/career, or you're more than welcome to email us at career.readiness@unco.edu. Thanks.
Thank you, Danielle. And quickly, I'll wait for everyone to unmute yourselves, and we'll do a quick Go Bears. 3, 2, 1. Go Bears!
Go Bears!
Have a great evening.